Who are we? Well, I'm Bernie. I'm a retired senior executive from the trucking transportation industry, former classmate of my partner in crime, Dick. And we hope to provide a senior perspective to people of all ages on the current events of the day, and also some anecdotal stuff and some humor, I hope.
Okay, I'm Dick. I'm 74. I'm a retired military officer. After leaving the military, I taught high school for 15 years, basically psychology, and I'm not happy the way the world is going. Okay, Bernie, what's on the table today?
I don't know where to begin, but I know this: Joe Biden, addled brain and all, is kryptonite to the American way of life, the Constitution of the United States, the American founding. And for a guy who 47 years in Washington barely did a darn thing, in the space of 100 days, has done just about everything out of the Marxist playbook. And in my opinion, it's not because he's doing it. I don't think he has the energy. I think Biden is the figurehead and Barack Obama is the shadow government. And that's my opinion, Dick.
Yeah, well, that sounds a little extreme, but then the question comes to mind is, and it's always been on my mind, without Biden, who the hell else can run and bring some sort of cohesion, number one. By the way, there's a new book out by John Boehner. Interesting, fascinating. You know, he was Speaker of the House for 4 years.
Yeah, I didn't like him.
Yeah, but if you get a chance, read it. There are a lot of people I don't like whose stuff I read. But your approach seems to be so negative. What is the solution?
The solution is to find a president like Donald Trump who doesn't tweet. And I'm being serious. I'm not being coy or glib. And although I voted for Trump in both elections, I very much like Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida. So I'm going to take a hard look at him. I don't know if Rand Paul out of Kentucky might possibly run if he has those kind of aspirations, but I certainly think he's really come to the fore. Unfortunately, my favorite senator here in Texas, Ted Cruz, I don't know that he has a chance because he's kind of a lightning rod. And hell, he barely escaped being defeated by that silly empty suit out of El Paso, Beto O'Rourke. So I don't know. That's kind of at the moment, that's my short list, but you know, there's plenty of time to go. It's just a darn shame that someone as capable as Donald Trump, who got so much done that he promised America, turned off a lot of America because of his personality and his aggressiveness with Twitter.
Yeah, but you know, let's face it, Donald Trump is a narcissist. Now, having said that, it really doesn't matter because I would agree with you that he's accomplished quite a bit. However, you seem to be talking about, let's just sit around and wait until 2024. You know, I guess what gets me is, what do we do in the meantime?
Well, I didn't mean to imply that I'm waiting patiently for 4 years. Number one, I'm an impatient individual, but we have the midterms to look forward to. And there are a lot of indications right now that with the agenda, the far left agenda of the Democratic Party, open borders, no COVID testing for illegals jumping our border, court packing on the Supreme Court, elimination of the Electoral College, et cetera. It's defunding of police, all those things and more that even Democrats are beginning to tire of what's going on in Washington. So the question becomes, I think the most important question is, can we in 2 years have a legitimate election so that the votes of Americans count and those who should not be voting don't get to vote?
Yeah, well, that's always been a hard point on me. You know, you have to show an ID to buy liquor. You have to show an ID to get a driver's license, et cetera, et cetera. But it's considered, I don't know, it's considered not necessary if you're going to vote. And, you know, I don't understand that.
One of the ironies is that, you know, we've opened the border, not we, Joe Biden, to illegal aliens. And that's what I call them because they're violating federal law. And while they're not all from Mexico, they're nonetheless coming through Mexico. So I'm going to make this point. If you're a citizen of Mexico, ID is required for you to vote in their elections. Kind of ironic that the Democratic Party doesn't trust the American voter, but they want to swell the ranks of voter rolls with illegal aliens. And they insist that there be no voter ID because they call that voter suppression, which is nonsense.
I would agree with that, you know, 100%. But again, my question becomes, because I'm caught in this conundrum, is what the hell do we do for the next 4 years?
Well, first of all, at our age, we probably don't use conundrums anymore. So you shouldn't fret about that, Dick.
Okay.
You know, when you say, what do you do? There's a host of things we can do. Certainly not what I used to do, writing to the newspaper editor wherever I lived, because now, other than the Epic Times, I can't think off the top of my head of a major metropolitan paper that isn't so far left-leaning that, you know, you can count on the editorial board to publish conservative commentary. But I post on Facebook, Conservative Views. I fairly regularly get slapped on the hand by their left-leaning fact checkers. Certainly contribute to conservative candidates, whether they're Republicans or independents, and get involved. I think, for the most part, that American people are so overwhelmed by what Biden, Pelosi, Harris, Schumer are all doing under the auspices and direction of Barack Obama, that they feel overwhelmed, and particularly with kind of the habits formed during the Democrat-imposed lockdowns, they've almost gone into hiding. It's kind of like just so you, as long as you stay away from my doorstep, please, as opposed to getting involved. You got to hand it to the left. If anything and everything rankles them, there's an instantaneous protest and an overwhelming response. And we're up against it, folks. They've got the media, they've got academia, they have education from grade school to the colleges and universities. and they have the mainstream media. It's the Democratic Party has all those allies. And how do you fight that? Well, Trump proved, and I've heard different numbers, 75 million, 78 million, whatever the real votes were. But, people got to the polls, but I don't even know that going to the polls is enough. It's how do you get those who didn't go to the polls, or as I saw in a survey this week, and I was stunned by it, 46% of independents rate Biden a good president. So what is the Republican Party doing to convert independents? And what can John Q. Public do to convert / convince independents in his neighborhood, in his place of employment, whatever? I don't know if I've answered your question.
Well, yes, you did. But as the clock ticks, with our lifespan, I'm not sure that people will do anything, number one. And number two, what'll be the final outcome? And you brought up the demonstrations, the rest of the stuff. Okay, let's talk about all these trials going on for blacks that have been shot and this and that and everything else, and people resigning. The question becomes, I'm not sure what the question becomes. How'd we get to this mess?
Well, number one, you suggested a book. I'll suggest that people read Heather McDonald. She's done some serious analysis of national statistics on police shootings. And the media is propagandizing the number of blacks killed by white police officers in the country, just, I think, to add to the divisiveness that the Democratic Party has long been intent on fomenting.
More blacks kill blacks than anybody else.
Exactly. And the prime example, and I could cite other examples, but I think that the prime example is Chicago. And where did Barack Obama come from? He came from Chicago. I mean, he was an Illinois legislator. His wife had a job in Chicago. And the number of shootings every weekend is appalling. And it is black on black crime. Now, am I here to defend every police officer in the country? That'd be silly. But the thing that bothers me most now is every American is supposed to be entitled to be deemed innocent until proven guilty, have a fair trial, a jury trial if he or she wants it, and justice should prevail without a mob mentality, driving the outcome. But the way it works now is the protesters are outside the courtroom. The city in which the trials are being held, they begin putting up the plywood in anticipation of the riots, which scares the hell out of the citizenry. And the papers arrive at verdicts long before the jury's even heard all the testimony. What's happened to our system of jurisprudence, and how would you or I or any American feel if we got into a bind and that's how things were handled? A kangaroo court being bullied by a mob on the court doorsteps.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting what happens on the Chauvin case Now you got the officer who can't tell the difference between a taser and a Glock.
Yeah, now that one
Absolutely unbelievable. Now
struck
we had
me.
another mass shooting. I mean, it just goes on and on.
Yeah, and again, as you know, a citizen and I think an intelligent person, and I think that's the right case that involved the gun being drawn rather than the taser.
Yeah,
I mean, a taser shouldn't feel like a gun. It's generally worn on the opposite hip from the gun. So I immediately had doubts about that. It sounded a little CYA to me. But that said, I'm not jumping to a conclusion until all the evidence is in. Wouldn't that be nice if our country returns to that kind of mindset?
oh, that's a great point.
Well, gee, thanks, Dick.
Yeah, well, you know, when you get to be our age, and I don't think people recognize it, is that every day counts. And 2020 with COVID, you know, everything just went by. I feel that I can't afford to lose a year, much less a day, and to watch all this really bothers me because, you know, 50 years ago, it wasn't like this. And, you know, I'm kind of, how'd we get to this point?
I don't know. My parents raised me and my sisters and brother, you know, during the Eisenhower administration and JFK. And I look at those times, particularly the Eisenhower years, compared with today. And oh, by the way, when I speak of Dwight Eisenhower, a little bit of history, folks, and I know you know this, Dick, Eisenhower had his own border crisis, and he sent the troops in.
Yeah, Operation.
Unhesitatingly.
Yeah, it
and
was
now
called Operation Wetback.
Exactly. He even used the wrong politically incorrect term, right? I don't think Wetback would, he'd be pilloried today, but he didn't hesitate. So if Ike, the former commander of the Allied forces in World War II, deemed what was happening at the southern border an invasion, where does the likes of Kamala Harris or Joe Biden get off saying it's not an invasion? And the reason they're trying to change the nomenclature and call it just an influx of refugees is because the Constitution of the United States requires that the federal government protect states against invasions. And the Constitution leaves the term invasion in a broad term. They don't get down to specifics. And invasions can come in many forms.
Yeah.
I mean, is not the COVID virus an invasion from China? So we've had all these lockdowns, all these restrictions, social distancing, mask wearing, public schools closed, bars and restaurants decimated, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But now that Biden's in office and he pilloried Trump unfairly, saying Trump was responsible for COVID deaths, and now that Biden's in office, he wants open borders and the hundreds of thousands either at the border or marching towards the southern border through Mexico, towards our southern border, are not being COVID tested at the border.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why isn't America up on its haunches about that? And now I'm talking about at the very least, the Trump voters.
Well, yeah, but see, you just asked the question, but you never answered it. Why? I mean,
I think I did previously. And I hope I'm wrong. I think people have been locked down, preoccupied with COVID, and worn out by politics and the media. So many people have turned off CNN and MSNBC, and like me, even Fox News, which has really changed. And people are so fed up, they're just kind of hunkered down. It's almost the same bunker mentality that Joe Biden used in campaigning, which was farcical. What candidate in American history has stayed in a basement forever?
God, that's depressing.
Yeah, I had to put my blood pressure cuff on during these podcasts.
Ah, yeah, well, that's true. I just don't know. We've been on this for 20 minutes. We should probably say goodbye until the next time.
Well, if you insist.
Oh, I don't insist at all. We can go on forever.
No.
I really think
I don't mean to come across so impassioned to scare people off right out of the gate, but you asked me what's going on, and it's I think it'd be kind of silly if in the context of what's going on, we didn't talk about the political environment. But oh, by the way, can I tell one little thing before we bail out?
Certainly.
Well, you and I were both born in 1947, right?
Yes.
Jackie Robinson this week celebrated, or we in America, those of us who love sports and baseball for sure, that's when Jackie Robinson entered the Major League Baseball. 1947, hard to believe. I would love to have seen him play.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it is. A lot has happened in our lifetime. And I hope through the course of our podcast, we can give people, particularly younger people, some perspective on that journey from the late 40s through to today.
Well, I think you've done a great job explaining it. And I think when we meet again, hopefully we can get somewhere.
Okay, well, I've enjoyed it, Dick.
Okay, see you next time.